At this year's NECA in Austin, I think two things stuck out to me. The amount of construction software companies, business management type of software, and also the amount of smaller electric vehicle charging station manufacturers that I had not really ever heard of. I think that kind of one of the reasons for all the software out there is there's a need that we saw not only in software, but with many of the electrical product manufacturers, helping contractors do more with less. There's a lot of challenges right now with not having enough people, so they have to operate as efficiently as possible. So I think that's a big spur, I guess you could say, for all the amount of software that's being marketed out there. I'm sure the technology out there too, with the way apps have kind of made it easier for people to know how to use it, and it kind of gives them entry to some pretty powerful data management tools. So I thought that was interesting. The one thing I did not see as much of yet, although some people made comments on, is how helping contractors connect their business systems to the distributor business systems for their purchasing, whether maybe right from their estimating or their bulk purchasing. So that'll be a challenge going forward. That would be interesting to see if we see more of that in the years to come. And yeah, the other thing I think was the electric vehicles, both some great content. I had a chance to attend a couple of seminars on electric vehicles, and it really gave, I think, contractors who aren't into it yet a pretty good idea what it'll take to succeed in that particular market. And but there were so many companies that I had not heard of that had chargers on the scene. I mean, most of the large distribution equipment companies are very actively marketing their EV charging systems, but there were a lot of other smaller ones that I had never heard of. There were some big ones too that I had heard of that were here. ChargePoint for one of them, and Wallbox. But it'll be interesting to see how many of these smaller companies can find a niche in the electrical market, because I think the contractors are certainly going to be a key piece of this whole market. I think the numbers expected for charging going forward are going to be enormous, and I think electrical contractors are in a perfect position to do a really good job of getting that business.
Okay, so my key takeaways from NECA this year, it was a great crowd. I felt it was much more vibrant than the year before. The show floor had a lot of good attendance, and a lot of people were very active with each of the vendors. As far as some trends that I would take away from it is that we feel like there's a lot of software companies here breaking into the market to try and help the contractors take advantage of technology to improve their processes and actually improve the efficiency on their jobs, make them more efficient. And a part of the drive for that is because there's such a labor shortage, so they're just trying to figure out how to be more effective, do more projects, be more profitable on the work that they're doing. Many of the vendors that I met with on the show floor were very happy with the attendance. They felt like it was a good quality audience and a lot of good engagement with the attendees that they were interacting with. So I think it worked out really well. And looking to the future, some of the things that I picked up on were obviously all the investment dollars that are going to be coming through with the new Infrastructure Act that was enacted will drive a lot of business, and we're seeing a lot of discussion around EV and solar, of course.
Well, so this was actually my first NECA, so it was really exciting to get to see the industry, get to meet a lot of readers, a lot of the different companies that we work with and write about. And my biggest takeaway from what I saw, both on the show floor and in my sessions, was just that change is definitely coming. There's a lot of big changes. I know Jim talked about the electric vehicles are really big. That's on the rise. We saw a lot of that, a lot of new tech companies for the industry. And then also one of the sessions I was at today on the last day here was about the upcoming NEC changes for 2023. A lot of big code changes there. It'll be interesting to just see going forward how that affects the industry and how those changes have impacted them next year at NECA.
Well, my biggest takeaway from this year's NECA is actually more of just a general observation. Last year was my very first in-person NECA event, and it was really great kind of seeing this transition as we're coming out of the pandemic. A lot more people, a lot more energy. It felt really good to be back on the show floor and in the sessions. There were a lot more people in several of the sessions that I attended. In terms of sessions, I think my biggest takeaway was actually in terms of how marijuana affects people on the job site, I think I thought it was going to be much more of a black and white issue in terms of you can do it or you cannot do it. We had a lawyer actually come in to our session who works with, marijuana and like whether that's recreational or medical marijuana usage, and kind of the legal side around it. And she really explained that it's a lot more nuanced than that, and it varies depending on your local, your state, your federal level. So that was definitely just interesting. And she gave some reasons or some studies that showed perhaps it's maybe not as clear cut before as just don't do drugs anywhere near or on the job site. So you can learn a little bit more about that on the write-up online. And then I think the other takeaway is very similar to what Jim said, doing more with less. We talked about the supply chain issues, the material shortages. So just really being smart about how we work on the job site, take advantage of those skilled workers and do more with less product.